Oh my God, it's so heavy. Oh, dude, this is so cool. Can I touch it? I mean, I have to. Can you imagine the size of that thing? Inside this box is a legendary piece of history, actually the rarest artifact that I've ever held. Lost in time, forgotten, and unappreciated. And for far too long, it has been trapped inside this temporary cardboard vessel, waiting for the display monument that it truly deserves. Today, I am building a world-class keepsake box out of rare wood, worthy of displaying and protecting something this valuable. And don't worry, you'll learn how you can make one of these as well, but more importantly, what's in the box. So what makes a picture frame that houses the Mona Lisa worthy of such a painting, while the picture frame on my refrigerator is only worthy of housing this atrocity? Foundationally, the quality of a piece is determined by the quality of materials used to make it. If we want to make a legendary box for a legendary artifact, we gotta use legendary materials. So we're going with this rare Zebrawood and Wenge wood. To give you an idea of that tier of wood, let's take some pine 2x4s. They're 1.5 inches thick, 3.5 inches wide, 96 inches long. They're gonna run you about $3 at Home Depot. But if instead of using pine, we got that same dimensioned plank out of Wenge, it now costs around $93. And it's the same price for Zebrawood, but they're worth it because the color combination of these two species, as well as the durability, makes the materials we're using to make this box elite. But at the beginning, these rare cuts of wood still look really rough. I mean, saw marks, they're splintered, rough edges, everything. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you have world-class materials if you then don't know how to work them into world-class shapes and forms. Right here, I'm cutting the lid and the base of our box, and I've chosen to do this out of the darker colored wood. The size of the lid and the base need to be just bigger than the thing you're trying to house in the box, so for us, it needs to be just bigger than the shoulder. Now, one trade-off with the Zebrawood and the Wenge wood is that it typically comes to me rough cut, meaning that I do not have any straight or uniform edge on this, and I don't really know any dimension other than a general thickness of about 1 inch. You're seeing me grind on this wood on a jointer, and that's to get me straight edges and flat, smooth surfaces. But if you don't have a jointer or a drum sander, you can get something called S4S wood, which means that all 4 of the surfaces are already flat and smooth. Doing so saves you time and prevents wood from getting in your mouth during the milling process. Let's now make the sidewalls of the box, and I'm going to use the Zebrawood as a complement to the Wenge lid and base. We need 4 pieces here, and every time I make a cut, I want to mark across that cut to remind myself what wood grain was connected. So you're making waterfall joints in the corners, meaning that the grain is going to wrap around the corners continuously and be unbroken. Those 90-degree cuts are just a start. That won't give us the continuous grain, so we have to change the blade angle now to 45 degrees. We'll go back then to cut the squared off ends of our sidewalls. And to do so, we locate all the marks that we just made notating the grain, and we put those sides down. The key though is to not change the overall length of your sidewalls. We're just trying to take off the corners. Before we connect these 4 sidewalls, we gotta make a feature in them that's gonna let the lid and the base hunker in there. I want to position my fin so that the very most outer edge of the blade is flush with the very most outer edge of my wall. Then I want to have my blades set at a height of maybe 1/4 inch. Now if you want both a lid and a base to your box, which you do, you gotta do this feature on top and bottom of each of those 4 panels, and you gotta do it on the face that was cut off by the angle. Let's glue the sidewalls together. If you've done it correctly, you should still have your marks, which essentially enable you to rebuild your plank of wood with continuous and unbroken grain. Now you just got those little triangular notches cut out of there. And painter's tape is your best friend at this point because it helps you to build those joints, and it also helps you to cover up the internal faces so that when the glue inevitably smooshes out of those miter joints, it doesn't get on that internal wood where it's really hard to sand. And you might be thinking after you see that handy little trick, dang, this guy's kind of an expert, but if you give me a second, you'll see me for what I really am. I had to put too much glue. Yikes. Don't do this, kids. And for a mitered box like this, you could definitely just do like 2 clamps across each side, but I've been loving these ratchet straps. You can just crank the hell out of it, and it's like universal pressure. And once I wiped away the horrific excess of glue, then I can use a sharp wedge to kind of like squeegee off the rest of it. And as long as there's no standing glue, even if it's not dry, you can just kind of peel off the tape and you should be good to go on that internal wood. but we have a little schmutz on top of the miter joints. And typically I'd wait till the next day until the glue is 100% dry, but I can't tell you how little time I had to do this project, so I had to clean up those joints the day that I glued it. Of course, the Zebrawood walls are perfect and beautiful now, but we have a box with no lid, and a box with no lid is essentially just a really thick picture frame, I guess. So we gotta finish up the lid here. When you're making the lid, you don't want the dimensions of the lid to be the exact same of the outermost exterior of the box, nor do you want them to be the innermost interior of the box. Instead, you're trying to make it the exact dimension of that tiny little shelf that we ripped out earlier. And I mean exact, because you don't want any spaces there. At a certain point, you're not even taking off dimension from your lid. You're just trying to give the lid the impression that you're making it smaller. You can sand the corners so it kind of slips in there.
Damn it.
Like if you see the saw taking off a visible amount of material, you've taken off too much material.
Fit in there, you silly bitch. I think that's gonna go. Shit. Are you? Oh, it was in the whole time. It just doesn't go down very deep. Okay.
Yeah, so it's worth noting that the lid will only go down as deep as the shelf is deep, which isn't very deep.
Fit. Just one time. One time, just right there, on the money.
Yes.
And if you've liked the video, and if you've liked the vibe of what we got going on here, and you want to see other cool stuff made out of wood, consider liking and subscribing. It helps the channel quite a bit.
That's heavier than I'd like to lift right now. Haven't warmed up today, you know. So you'd be correct if you were thinking,
Hey Tanner, that box is 100% sealed up. It's not a very good box if you can't get inside of it.
oh, we've got a plan for that. I don't know how I'm gonna execute the plan yet, but we have a plan.
You might be wondering why I've built this box as one enclosed unit that I will then cut to make the top and the bottom. If I were to have glued together the top half on its own and then glued together the bottom half on its own, they wouldn't necessarily be the exact same shape. So when you put them together, they wouldn't necessarily align with each other.
How do I cut that now? Is the question.
But by building it as one unit, I know that the two halves, when I separate them, are going to be the exact same shape and size as each other, and they'll align perfectly. You might also be wondering, why am I cutting the lid from the base at a jaunty little angle here? And it's because the artifact that we're displaying, you know, that is best displayed at an angle. So if I cut the lid from the base at the same angle, it's just gonna make everything look a little bit more intuitive. Aside from that detail, you might also be thinking, dang, this guy's got such a command over his tools. I've never seen a table saw used in that way. He must be extremely well thought out, meticulous, and But you know what they say, a good woodworker is not characterized by someone who never makes mistakes, but instead is characterized by someone who makes mistakes and knows how to fix those mistakes. First, I'm going to take both of my halves and I'm going to run them over the jointer to make sure that those edges that make up the joint are extremely flat. But at this point, we do still have that deep cut mark from where the piece fell into the saw blade. But that's no problem whatsoever, because that little saw gouge happened to be on the outside, so I can just bevel or chamfer the corners and make this whole thing look like an intentional design feature. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, how else were you planning on opening the box? If you just had the top half and the bottom half going right up to each other with no groove, how are you gonna get your fingers in there to pry apart the two halves? You gotta have the groove to pry apart the two halves, is at least what I'm gonna tell people. And I know the next thing you're probably thinking is, hey, the top half and the bottom half can slide left and right and forward and back with each other. How do you make it to where they are always perfectly vertically locked in when you close the box? I'm basically just gonna line that internal surface of my base piece with really thin walls such that they sit just a little bit proud of the joint which connects the bottom half and the top half. And because we made both of the halves from the same original unit, we know that the top and the bottom are the exact same size and shape. So the internal wall we're making on the bottom is going to fit perfectly in line with the internal faces of the top half, and that's what closes your box perfectly aligned every time. Oh, and you guys haven't forgotten that we still don't know what's in this magical secret little box, right? This rare and ancient artifact that we've been teasing and intentionally putting in every single frame, right? But can you kind of get a sense of why the box that we've been making is fit for whatever rare artifact could be in this mystery box? And the crazy thing is, we've hopefully shown you how you can also make one of these for your own rare artifacts. Of course, we couldn't fit every single little detail of exactly how you make this box in this short video, but I've made a really helpful document and posted it to our Patreon page that displays the exact designs, blueprints, and step-by-step process that you can take to preserve and display your own rare artifacts. And support on Patreon directly enables us to keep making cool videos like this and bring you more designs and blueprints so you can make cool stuff too. Now it's time to figure out what's in the box.
So here's the thing. I've known what's in this box the entire time, and I know generally how big it is, but I've never seen one of these in person. So now we gotta open this up so that we can make our specialized stand to display what's in the box. Ooh. Whoa, that's massive. I should probably wash my hands. Oh my God, it's so heavy. Oh dude, this is so cool. Oh my God. Oh dude, that's so cool. Can I touch it? I mean, I have to. That's so heavy. Dude, can you imagine the size of that thing? Oh man. Okay, let's fit this to our box.
Designing and creating the stand that actually displayed the shark tooth within the box was probably the hardest part of this entire project. It was such an organic and irregular shape, I just didn't know how to grab it without damaging it. Like if you had a coin or something, I mean that's one thing, it's a circle, right? But how do you gently secure something with this irregular shape like a shark tooth? Because I was able to trace the exact outline of the tooth, I could then carve away the exact shape of the tooth using my cut saw carving bits. And these bits were the perfect tool for the job. Like if you need to shape anything irregularly or organically, as an artist and a craftsperson, I could not recommend these cut saw bits enough. I think we got a link in the description to get you a little discount there. A quick hand sanding on the top edges of those internal wall linings makes sure that the lid never sticks when you're putting it on or taking it off. From there, sand this thing as much or as little as you like. I painstakingly go and make sure that I have sanded the bite or the sharpness out of every single edge on the top and the bottom of my box. I then use an orbital sander to smooth out all the faces, but it really does help when you actually put sandpaper on the orbital sander. Unironically, making, but then especially sanding and finishing a piece like this can take just as long as something like a dining table because you have so many more faces, features, and edges. And that is especially true for the finishing process. Unequivocally, I would rather finish a 14-foot conference table than one of these boxes. But if you are a friend of the channel, then you know when I'm finishing something of this caliber, it's gotta be Rubio monocoat, baby. Look at the way the Wenge wood and the Zebrawood works together in perfect harmony with this finish. The durability of the finish alone is gonna make the box last for the next 347 million years of the shark tooth's life. All right, are you ready to see this bad boy? 3, 2, 1, yeah, look at that thing. I don't know how to do reveals yet. I'm still working on it, but look at that Hey, that is a Megalodon shark tooth. This bad boy's hundreds of millions of years, or maybe just a few million years, I don't know, hundreds, who knows. Sharks are older than trees, I know that. But apparently, only the sharks that were pushing like 60 feet were pumping out teeth like these. Can you imagine? That's a whopper. What if we would have hooked up with one of those with our wooden fishing pole? What a YouTube video that would have been. What I want to stress is that a Megalodon shark tooth of this size and kept in this pristine condition for so many millions of years is ultra rare, and it deserves an ultra rare box to display it and protect it for the next 100 to 200 billion, 300 trillion years. Huge thank you to our Patreon supporters, especially Brooks B as an old growth supporter and Dave B as the recipient of a Megalodon shark tooth.